the first shot misses, are we going to hit the second shot? It doesn't look like it, does it? If I miss this, we lose. Hello and welcome back to today's video, where we're going to be playing in the Tier 9 British battleship Marlborough, which is the latest Dockyard ship, which is commonly regarded as the worst Dockyard ship to come to World of Warships. And whilst this may not be entirely wrong, I do think it does get a very bad name for itself, and I'd like to discuss why it's not entirely bad, because I do think it has some redeeming points and it can be somewhat consistent. I mean, I say this whilst we are shooting bombermen, and out of the 16 shells we shoot, only 4 of them hits, but again, we'll just really discuss throughout this game. Now, we're currently playing on the map shards, and it is very favourable matchmaking, so we are top tier at tier 9, but even when we're going against tier 10s, I do still think it can hold its own, and you can get some pretty reliable damage scores. Now, I've got to say, my mindset going into this, and just, I guess my first few games, is that this is going to be awful, because the overwhelming majority of people that have played this, and just, I guess the feedback that it has gotten, is it's an awful ship and everything about it is bad, which I guess you could argue is the case, and in terms of some of the stats, it is the case. I still was expecting it to perform horribly, but honestly, it didn't perform that badly, and it's been consistently good for all the games that I've been playing. Now, I did initially record a first impressions of this, but considering the amount that I've been recently posting on my channel, I thought I'll probably leave it and do some other video, and then I had this absolute cracker of a game, and I thought, you know what, this is going to be perfect to showcase how this ship plays, because it just shows you exactly what can be performed in this ship, because this is the best game I've ever had, and probably one of the best comebacks I've ever had in World of Warships for a very long time, so it certainly made for a rather enjoyable game, and hopefully it'll make for an enjoyable video for you to watch. Now, in terms of the bad points of this ship, there are quite a few of them. Some of the most glaringly obvious ones are the fact that it has got a massive citadel, so it is a very large weak spot for the ship, and with that you also have very bad firing angles, and to get all your guns firing, you have to expose the massive citadel, and at that point it means if you are shooting, like in this case here, I have to expose a lot of my side, and if there's anything that was close or had a decent, I guess, angle on me, I would be punished very, very quickly. But thankfully it's only a Pommern and an Alaska, which are at pretty serious range, so I'm thinking I am pretty safe to just shoot and expose this much side. Now, for the start of this game, I am using high explosive because I'm thinking I might as well try and get some high explosive damage and get some fires, since everything's going to be quite far away, but once ships start getting closer, that's when you do want to start using armor piercing, because I do think the armor piercing is quite good. Now, another one of the bad points is it's got a comically low sigma of 1.4, which does mean sometimes you get some horrendous shell grouping, and, you know, as I say, you've got 16 shells, and sometimes you may even hit, say, 2 of those shells, so there is still that, but at the same time, because you've got so many, and you've got actually a great reload of a base reload of 25 seconds, that does more than make up for it, and you will certainly see that in this game. Now, whilst you can get those horrible shell groupings, occasionally it is a bit like a gamble, because occasionally you can get some of the cleanest, tightest grouping, and when you've got armor piercing loaded, and you will see this later on this game, that can provide you with some incredible results. So, well, I mean, you're just going to have to see it for yourself, because it was just one of the best feelings when this actually happened. Now, at the moment, unfortunately, I have just lost my teammate Chris, who was in the Kronstadt, because the enemy carrier was rather persistent. They just sort of gripped onto them like a bulldog and did not stop going for them alongside the rest of the team, and unfortunately only a few minutes into this game he's already been knocked out, and considering his position it's rather surprising he did as well, so it's just mainly the fact of you've got to kind of give it to the carrier for having that much persistence and just went for a single target. Now at this point I'm still loading high explosive, because I'm just like, okay, I'm getting a decent amount of damage. You can already see, I mean, we're about 6 minutes into this game, you know, we've done 53,000 damage already. That's really not bad. And we are getting a few more shots onto this Alaska, and unfortunately we didn't get a fire, which genuinely does surprise me, because this thing does have a 24% fire chance, and that is a very, very lucky Cleveland, since I had armor piercing nearly loaded on their side, and that that would have been a pretty awful shot for them. However, since we do have armor piercing loaded, I'm thinking, oh, what's this over here? And this is exactly what I mean when I say sometimes the shell grouping can be almost godlike, as if the wargaming RNG gods just kissed it, and oh, that was just one of my best shots ever, because I was just like, hold on, that was that was just some of the best grouping I've ever had, and that brings us to just under 100,000 damage within the first 7 minutes of the game. Unfortunately, we do have torpedoes coming in, and if you see on the map, there is a Scarne that was just spotted, so I'm guessing that was the Scarne shells, and thankfully they don't do too much damage, but I am using the repair party and my damage control party. Now, I've just realised I've not actually explained what my build is, so I'll very quickly just put my command build and my upgrades on screen now. So if you want to mimic what I'm using, then those are on screen at the moment, and I am using one of the Dunkirk brothers too. Now, although the Scarne is currently spotted and the lightning was just pinging them, at the same time I did want to get rid of the shores since they are going to be HE spamming us for the entirety of the game, so I'm thinking no, I just want them gone. They're in a very easy to knock out position, so I'm going to start shooting the shores and hopefully knock them out of the game, and keeping arm piercing loaded just so we can ensure they're dead. Now, because we did have to turn into those torpedoes originally, that means we burnt off a lot of speed there, meaning there's nothing we could really do for those initial torpedo strikes there from the carrier, but that does mean at least now we're in this turn, we can at least dodge one of the torpedoes from the second run, but at the same time it's just a fact of hope we get no flooding, and we don't get a flooding, so overall everything is looking quite good since we can now just get away and start healing once those come off cooldown. But as I was saying, those points, you know, there are some really bad points to the ship, but at the same time I think because you've got such a good reload, it kind of makes up for the fact that sometimes you are going to miss quite a few of your shells, but since you've got so many shells, you can just start chucking them anyway. Now, the way I'm seeing this is just the fact of, okay, if you've got targets like this, so you've got soft targets, you've got cruisers, things that you can easily knock out with armor piercing, great, go ahead, load some AP, but otherwise, I mean, I know it's not the best practice all the time because it's a bit scummy HE spamming, but at the same time, it's a British battleship and it's pretty much what they're known for. It's just you spam high explosive and you get lots of fires, and that's where I'm saying you can be somewhat consistent, because if you're just loading high explosive with a fire chance and you can bolster it with signals as well, is at that point you can just keep on chucking high explosive at things until you get an opportunity like this Palmer who's giving us a pretty nice side, so we're going to continue to load some armor piercing, well, fire some armor piercing at their side, 69k all the way down to 58k, 11,000 damage, that's very nice. And although we did get some ricochets and non-penetrations, still, that is a decent amount of HP, and we're going to keep AP loaded just in case we get another target. But what I'm saying is, you've got high explosive and armor piercing, so it's just a fact of make sure you switch your shell types, and you can still do relatively well in this. And well, I say my first impression of this video, I was loading more high explosive, and then I was getting pretty decent results because although I could have potentially gotten a lot more damage, I was still like, okay, well, get some of those, and kept on just focusing on one target, getting fires, and I think we managed to get about 130, 140k, so I was like, yeah, that's quite good. And speaking of those damage numbers, we are already getting towards that only halfway through this game at 123,000 damage. Unfortunately, we are being knocked out by the Cleveland, or at least focused by the Cleveland, and you'll have noticed that we have just lost our A cap, and at the moment the enemies do have all of them in their control, but thankfully we've got a Tashkent in the top cap on C, so they have just flipped that, putting the game a little bit more in our favour. But as you can see, yeah, it's not the most favourable conditions since they're almost 300 points ahead and they've got most of the map control, but we'll show you this as this game progresses, but it does get a lot worse before it gets better. Now, that Cleveland, 5,000 HP, they are not doing too well. I try and send over some more shells because, I mean, they're still giving us a pretty decent angle, so armor piercing should really do a lot of damage, but their HE spam is pretty relentless at the moment, so I was really hoping to get rid of them, but since I've got no shots on them, they've got no shots on us, it's okay at the moment because they don't have a heal to get rid of any of that, so they're now going to be rather weak and probably not going to be playing too aggressively at this point. But in terms of the good points, as I say, the armor piercing can be amazing, as you've already seen. It can do well, and especially against cruisers, it's a brilliant ammo choice. So the armor piercing is really good. With a 24% fire chance, you can consistently just be getting shots on people and getting fires, and even though we have got armor piercing loaded at the moment, you saw that that Cossack didn't have too much HP. Got that fire in, 4 overpens and a penetration. They are not going to be left alive for very long, since that's probably going to leave them on, what, about 2,000 HP. So at that point they're also going to be pretty much out of the battle, so it's quite nice that we do have that many shells that we can just sort of flush that general area, and we do manage to get a decent number of hits. Now, although the Sigma is bad, and I have explained, you know, it's the fact of you've got so many shells, it kind of makes up for that, but at the same time, the reload, if you have got, like what I've done, I've gone for the reload mod, and I've also gone for Adrenaline Rush. When you, well, I mean, you're going to see what the reload time is now, and we're still only about half HP. That can mean that you can just get such a high DPM that it doesn't even matter that you're missing some of your shots, because at that point it's like, look at that, it's just barely 20 seconds, and once we lose even more HP, that's going to be reduced even further, so you can be getting just... And there we go, we also managed to confirm the kill on the Pommer and giving us 3 kills. It means that you can just continue chucking shells out, and if you do need to be high explosive spamming, then you're almost certain to get some permanent fires, and at that point you can be able to bolster your damage numbers incredibly well. Now, unfortunately, the Cossack has been HE spamming, and they did manage to knock out our friendly Jean Bart, and at this point the enemies do have a pretty solid lead against us. Now, our Lightning is getting into the B cap, so we are at least getting a bit of map control, but in terms of points, things are looking quite bleak. Now, I am aware that I don't really want to be giving too much side to this Alaska, so I'm not getting my rear guns to bear on them, because at that point it'd be quite stupid, because an Alaska is going to be able to horribly punish us, so trying to angle as best as possible. So considering that you've got 8 guns at the front, it's actually really quite competitive, because that's what some ships have in total, and you've got that just on the front, so I mean, honestly, it's not all that bad. Now, as for the ship itself, it's also quite manoeuvrable. I mean, in terms of speed, you've got a 31.5 knot base top speed, and Sierra Mike means you can get that even higher, so that alone is a pretty manoeuvrable ship. You have got an average rudder shift time, I think it's about 16 or so seconds, and at the same time, you've got a great concealment. I don't know if you saw earlier, I mean, at the moment we are currently detected by radar, I'm assuming that's from the Alaska, is you do have just over 12 kilometers of radar if you do off detection if you go for a concealment upgrade as well as the commander skill. So it's also very stealthy with a maximum range of 20.9 kilometers. So overall, it's actually very stealthy. So you can sort of sneak up on people, and if you can catch people off guard and you've got a high explosive, armor piercing loaded, then you can really unleash absolute hell on them. And if you do have, say, gun feeder as well, then you could potentially just swap your ammo types 10 seconds, and there you go. You're going to be able to absolutely devastate someone. Now, at the moment, we aren't looking too good. 18,000 HP, 1 heal left. We do need to be careful, because at the moment the enemies have got 2 ships to our 1, which is going to be very problematic for us, because, well, at this point, we're going to be relying on me, which doesn't really have too much HP left. The carrier, at the moment, they're going to be running out of planes, and our destroyer, considering that there is a radar ship and 2 other destroyers on the enemy team, that's really bad for us, because at that point we're just in a very bad situation, and the chances of us turning this game around are just getting worse and worse. The enemies have got total map control pretty much, apart from the sea cap, which is being very well defended by our carrier. So at least that's a bit of a stronghold, but at this point it does look like we're basically going to lose. And at the time I was on call, because I was on call with my division mate, and I was thinking, yeah, there's no way we're going to win this. And I was just saying, yeah, I've got 13,000 HP. There's no way we're really going to win this unless we do something drastic. They're generating way too many points. They've got too many ships. They've got a massive lead. I mean, they did just lose one of their ships. I think it was the Alaska that just died. But even then, it's not looking good. So I popped my final heal just in case, we get some, as you can see, there's torpedoes coming in. Thankfully, we managed to get a really, really nice shot onto that Prince Heinrich. Tier 7, there we go, that was a pretty nice kill, and that's what I'm saying, is the armor piercing is pretty good, and when you get a side like that, you can really devastate them. Now, at this point though, you can see they are generating so many points, they're generating with 6 every couple of seconds there, and with 5 minutes left, it's looking bleak. We've got 500 points, they've got 800, we have got to do something, we've got to get a cap, we've got to start killing, otherwise this is going to be a loss. Now, we've also got the carrier which is harassing us, and I'm really hoping this doesn't set a flood, because if it floods, we're in trouble, since we've got no more heals, we've only got a damage control party left, and we kind of want to make use of that and just save it until we really, really need it, in case we get some HE spam or the Implacable comes over and drops some HE bombs on us. But at the moment we are pretty safe. But we've got a Skarne on the one side, and we've got the Cossack on the other, and at this point we're like, oh brilliant, this Cossack, okay, if this carrier can knock them out, that's going to be brilliant, because we need the points. If I miss this shot, yeah, there we go, the Cossack, they've still got HP. If I miss that shot, this game is probably over. And looking at it, the first shot misses. Are we going to hit the second shot? It doesn't look like it, does it? If I miss this, we lose. There we go. Nope. Didn't lose. Managed to get the Cossack. That has just brought the points lead a little bit more in our favour. Also gets the Kraken, and overall it's starting to look up, because now we've got the Tashkent going into the B cap, and that's going to slow them down, whilst at the same time it means that since they're going to be getting less, we're going to be getting more. That is just going to slowly start shrinking the giant gap in terms of points. And at that point we can just start pushing down this map and hopefully move this into more of our favour. Now, in terms of the ship lead, that is completely gone. They did have they had two ships for each of our one, and now it is a 1-to-1 basis, so it's looking a lot better for us, and because we've got a carrier, they are going to be able to give us information where I can start firing on them, and that is exactly what we need, since we do have a Scarne which could be dropping torpedoes into the cap, and the Cleveland, if you do remember, they only had about 5,000 HP left or so, and yep, there we go, they actually have 2,000 though, so really it's just going to be effective. If that Pobeda can just get some shots on them, then that's going to be brilliant, because that's going to bring our points lead up even higher if that Cleveland is dead. And then at that point it's just going to be the carrier and the Scarne, so we're just going to need to go and get this capture point, and thankfully this Tashkent does listen, because they pretty much just went straight into this cap, went in, and at this point they've just flipped it. Now the Implacable is coming in, they may get a fire because it is a British carrier, and surprisingly, they actually miss and only hit, one bomb there, so we get incredibly lucky, and I do compliment our carry because they were incredibly helpful dropping fighters, and overall they just played very well this game. But at that point now, we've got 2 caps, so we do have more points generation, but even so, the enemies are on 900 and we're just under 700, so there is about a 200 point lead that they've got, and we've only got about 2 minutes left, so we still need to do something drastic. But, of course, that just means we just need to start pushing up. Their Cleveland is nearly dead, so if they get exposed and get even just one of my shells manages to hit them, they are dead, or if the carrier just gets one drop on them, they are dead. That's going to be good for us, and what's not good for us is the torpedoes to our side. However, please note, I'm not actually detected at the moment, which is good, and there we go. They've just run out because Scarne's torpedoes, they've got a range of 12 kilometers, or at least if they've got the upgraded torpedo launchers. So that means they are basically, as soon as I get spotted, that means, yeah, okay, they're going to be within range for torpedoes, but at the moment we are completely safe. And at the same time, the Pobeda, they just managed to get a kill onto the Cleveland, which is brilliant because that has just brought us even close to the enemy points, and the enemy points have just been drawn down. We're now getting around 6 points every few seconds, they're only getting 3, closing the gap even further, so now we just need to find where that Scarne is, and then possibly get this Implacable, just to really get this. But you can already see at the moment this is a very tight game, and overall showing that this ship can really perform when it needs to, and as I say, it can do some pretty amazing things. Now, unfortunately, the carrier they are playing very smart actually. I mean, they've gotten into the cap, they managed to capture it, and they are hiding in a position where they can't be shot from. There's no way we can actually get any shots on them, and thankfully the Scarne is there, so I do drop some shots, and with this many shells, I will hit something, but thankfully, as I say, our carrier plays amazingly. They managed to get the Scarne, leaving just the carrier left. And with that, look at the points. There we go, one more tick, and now we have got the advantage. And also we managed to get an AA expert, which is quite nice. So at this point, it's just a fact of either if me or the Tashkent do get, detonated or something, then we do lose. But at this point, we pretty much cannot win. So at this point, we've got the Tashkent, which is coming around the corner, and I'm just hopefully trying to get a shot on this Implacable, because I'm thinking, well, 180k already, that's a wonderful score, but if we can get some damage, that would be perfect. But since the Tashkent was flipping the cap, the Implacable does come around the corner. We try and get a final salvo. Unfortunately, it's only one Citadel and the rest are overpens, but 195k, we've got the advantage. That is the win. And after running the clock down, here are the results, and it is one hell of a result screen. So 195,000 damage, 5 kills, and 7 achievements. Overall, just something that you really like to see, and as I say, it's just surprised me that I see an end result screen that looks like this playing in the Marlborough, so as I say, I do think it's definitely possible to get some really fun games. As for the team score, we do manage to get top of the team with 2,600 base XP, and of course I did compliment quite a few of the people on my team, since I don't think it would have been possible without having those good teammates at the end there, since, I mean, the Pobeda, they carried, the Tashkent really helped, same with the Lightning. Overall, just a brilliant team there, and detailed report, yeah, Pommern 64k, Zara, pretty much the entirety of their HP in a single salvo, and overall just really nice damage there. That's really it. So as I say, I do think that Marlborough, it's got potential. I don't think it's as bad as people make out, since you can have games like this, but if you did enjoy watching this, then you might also enjoy my first impressions of the new tier 10 battleship Poison, shown on screen now.